We go live to Venezuela, where the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodríguez, will offer statements.
The President of the Republic of Venezuela, we consider important, communicated with the public media and communications, and also to the Venezuelan people and to the international community to do some statements. As the popular quote says, it is better not to lie, because if you lie, you need to have a greater memory. If you have a poor memory, we advise you to not to lie. And also, the lie has short legs. To this moment, attending to his own words, because this is another important element that we want to talk about. The dignity people and the governments with dignity has a word. And its word has to be respected. And they have to fulfill with this word. Because the only thing that a woman or a man has is his own word, his own name, his own last name, his own signature. And we're going to speak more about this. We're filling with this word and the declaration of the Venezuelan government. President Nicolás Maduro, we are setting, guarding all the elements of the meetings that came through in the Doha capital, in the city of Milan, and the Republic of Italy, and also another meetings that were held in the capital of the United States. What for? To explore and attend a request in May that the United States government comply, that was directed to our friends to the Qatar Ram to request a bridge, a link that allowed us to start conversations in energetical matters, in political businesses, and diplomatic businesses, and immigration matters too. As that we're standing one and again that President Nicolás Maduro has repeated, if you want to play with our dignity and with our essence and with our attachment to the Constitution and our independence, our sovereignty, we're speaking to everyone, always saying that Venezuela is not under any restrictions and is sovereign and independent, because many years ago is free from a lot of the chains of the imperialism. If we set these grounds, we're willing to speak with anyone, as President Maduro said. If you want, I do want. If you don't want, I do not want. In the instances of the United States government, we accept to travel to Doha City, and the first meetings were held on 7th of May of 2023 with the assistance of Mr. Juan González, Special Deputy of the Central Agency of the Security of the United States, and Mr. Brian Nichols, Subsecretary for the West Hemisphere of the United States, and other representatives of the State Department of the Central Agency of the United States, and from the Treasury Department, also called CAFAC, to start the first meeting and to seek to generate bridges to be able to hold the conversation. And this happened, and from the first instance, from the first moment, the expression from the delegation of the United States was that the intention was to seek the rise of the coercive measures against Venezuela. What is our position from the first day? That we are willing to talk with the structures that have been mentioned you before, and that these sanctions will never should be imposed because they were illegal and because they were fighting against the international law. They asked for meetings, and on the 3rd and 4th of June of 2023 in Milan, the 8th and 10th of 2023 in Doha, 3rd and 4th of August 2023 in Italy, and 27th and 28th of September 2023, and 2 last meetings held last weeks in the United States Capitol. We had 6 safe video conferences with the delegation. In the case of the United States delegation was increased with the time with lawyers from the White House and representatives that were added from the State Department from the United States, representatives from other offices of the Biden administration. In the Venezuela case, were the same 4 of us, always, Hector, Leonardo, Larry, and Jorge Luis. In the month of September, on September 28th of 2023, and that's why always it's better to speak the truth, because always there's evidence that who's telling lies and not. On September 2023, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the United States of America signed 2 memorandums of understanding. One memorandum of understanding about the matter of immigration, this one, and another one about the politics topics and diplomatic topic and bilateral relationships. And this is first point because the far right and extreme sectors of Venezuela are pointing, no, United States is not recognizing the President Maduro government, but they signed the memorandum of understanding. The delegation of the United States and from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela had the intention to step forward to the normalization of the bilateral diplomatic relationships. And in this document that is in English, because all the documents were written and signed in English and in Spanish, this thin line here, can you close up the camera, please? You cannot see that, probably. This very thin line that we have here, it is the sign of the Subsecretary Nichols. And that's mine, Jorge Rodríguez Gomez sign. So both of us signed an understanding memorandum between both countries on the 28th of September. There is even photograph registration of this signature. And I can show you that with pleasure. In Doha, Qatar, this Mr. that is there is a sub-secretary signing the understanding memorandum, and this one is Jorge Rodríguez. Subsecretary Nichols, Rodríguez Gomez, and the facilitator of the Rum of Qatar, that we're always wishing the availability and strength and generosity and strength that they contribute and respect that was always taken into the conversation between the two delegations, with the presence of the Minister of State and the External Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Mohamed Abdel, gave the signature of both documents. I was showing you earlier the picture before of Mr. Nichols signing, and this is the Jorge Rodríguez picture signing both understanding memorandums. And what this document said, because one of the things that we are trying, because we respect our word, have you seen some spokesman of the United States administration saying things in November, that certain days are ahead and other, and we always say that we are not tolerating and will not tolerate ultimatums, and that us, where we sign and we are compliant to this memorandum about immigration, and this one about political electoral subjects of Venezuela. I want to read to you point by point so you can take conclusions by yourself. Who is compliant with the agreements and who offended his word? Who didn't set a value for the compliance of this word? Compromises that have been strengthened mutually in support of this purpose of normalizations of diplomatic relationships. Both of the participants had the intention of taking these measures of both effort. Step one on the week one, but because of the delay by the United States delegation and from the opposition of Venezuela, the week one became even more than half month. Venezuela has the intention of taking these measures to allow, with informative purposes, a copy of a political agreement negotiated with PU. We are not surrendering this copy, this drawer, but we say to the Dr. Bly, that was our representative of PU, and like he consults a lot with the North what you can or cannot do, you can surrender this copy and this drawer, and he did. And then it was announced publicly through the PU the next dialogue round that was going to be used in August 13, 2021, signed in Mexico with the government of Venezuela. In the said step one, we compromised to both things. One, the copy with the informative character, and to take a date to evaluate. And in this moment, in the Mexico format, both things were done. It was announced that we're going to be evaluated, and it was due a copy, this Barbados agreement that is well known worldwide. United States is compromised to make a release backing the announcement of the start of the conversations and to put specific licenses to facilitate the debt of Belize, República Dominicana, and Venezuela entities. One of the greatest vulgarities held in the sanctions is if someone is owing money to the United States or stopping that those countries paid even when those countries had the availability and disposition to pay. So he's sending to his lapdogs because, like, by example, Haiti was the only license emitted a long time after. They did it for a partial amount, not a total amount of debt. And we always been in this position to help the people of Haiti. And that's why it was late, that payment. To this day, no licenses have been emitted, nor for Dominican Republic or Belize. So who is fulfilling his word to take a license for diplomatic for Trinidad and Tobago, and also emitted conformity charge for European companies. Late, but it was fulfilled. It had to be in the same time that the copy was surrendered, but they wait until the Barbados agreement, and it wasn't fulfilled. Week 2, or step 2. You can take in notes who is compliant, who don't, who has a word and who don't. Venezuela has the intention to take these steps. Venezuela and Peru has the intention to sign a political agreement, the agreement of Barbados. And then say the authorization of the presidential candidates of political parties, listen well, that comply with the means that have been established to participate in the presidential elections and the agreements of Venezuela and the Peru, consistent with the Constitution of Venezuela and the procedure established by the institutions of the country. It sounds a little bit rumble, but as a synopsis, it can be by the Constitution, all the candidates that had the requirements. The same day that we signed the Barbados Agreement, I want to be President of the Republic. My son Lucas said yesterday that he wanted to be President of the Republic. And he said, you're going to have to wait because you're only 8 years old. Lucas is being repressed because he has the right to be President of the Republic when he complies with the requirements. If you don't go in by the Constitution or the Republic laws, we cannot avail a situation that violates the Constitution and the laws. And we say that not once, not twice, not only to Hector or Ronaldo. We all say that. Not only once, not twice. Tens of times. to the United States delegation that we were willing to create a mechanism that our delegation didn't write. Was wrote by the unitary platform, a mechanism to be in the Supreme Court, and eventually a person that was validated by the Republic laws can be and have a decision, because that's what the courts are. The courts are to receive a request and to analyze the request and then make a sentence and conclude. And we said, whoever brought violence to Venezuela, whoever asked for actions against Venezuela, whoever asked for blockade against Venezuela, just 2 weeks ago, Maria keeps asking for sanctions against Venezuela. Leopoldo Lopez, they continue to ask for sanctions against Venezuela, and they travel to United States, going with the far right over there. They traveled, they pushed to be reimposed the sanctions against Venezuela. And we say that a lot of times to the United States delegation. So we decided that to make a meeting with the Qatar delegation, and we say that we needed the decision without alteration of the Republic of Venezuela, that whoever violates the laws and the Constitution or they found themselves upon any measure of inhabilitation cannot request, but if the court concludes that a person that asks for a foreign army to invade Venezuela, that a multilateral force was created that applaud when Trump stole the gasoline in Venezuela, that applaud when it was really hard to bring meds to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. So, in which country in the world that can be good? According to the Constitution of Venezuela, that cannot be a candidate. It will be acceptable in the United States to someone that asked the invasion of foreign forces to invade the United States. That will be acceptable? That will be acceptable in France and Spain? No, of course not. And we say that. And I say that personally, not one, but tens of times. And to all the representatives of the platform. And we said that to the Norwegian facilitator that always been the opposition facilitation. But well, we've been going through that in the Norwegian facilitation because they're always taking sides. We hope that that being translated to Norwegian. A person that violates the Constitution and the Republic laws and that is tied to a measure, a kind one here, because in the United States it will be in life sentence. Spain will be in jail. In France it will be in jail. Here, these are kind measures, inhabilitation to exercise public office. How can you give the candidacy to someone that wants a foreign army to kill Venezuelan? How? How can we think about that? Well, we say tens of times. It is the facilitation here. And you can ask them. It is there in the Norwegian facilitations. And several times we were asked by some deputies from the digital platform, are you? No, we will never do that. Are you? We will never do that. Someone can say if I am changing in a word what we said. We never will do that. We'll never do that. In the defense of the peace of our republic, in defense of our sovereignty, in defense of our independence. We say that one over and over again. We reject any violence in the exercise of politics, also the rejection to measures that attempt against the peace and sovereignty of Venezuela. This was signed by the United States delegation, but since the start on the May 7th till this day, there's 9 that we have an idea of. There's 9 conspiracies against the peace of the republic, 9 attempts with against his life of the president of the republic, organized in Colombia, and it was denounced to the United States delegation. Do investigations because they're agents of the AA acting still in Colombia to recruit terrorists and paramilitary teams, and we say that several times. And to be free of the compromises that is acquired Venezuela in this step 2 or week 2, like it says here, announcement of the intention to be invited by a Venezuelan competent, the European Union, the Carter Center, and several things that Venezuela already do. You can get through the Barbados Agreement, the electoral registration, the electoral observation. We always do that. We're always doing that in Venezuela. There's countries that they not allowed electoral observations, but Venezuela does, always. So we don't have any issues of signing what is already in the laws of Venezuela and the goodwill of the National Electoral Council of Venezuela. This was our compromise. The candidacy being fulfilled with the Constitution and the laws, us and Dan, and Maria Machado, and the 2 terrorists that the March 25th, with guns, they tried to attempt against the life of the President of the Republic, and we're waiting there, and the candidacy of his day, according to those 2, and the oppressors of the white bracelet, and the terrorists from Colombia, and the ones who tried to assassinate the governor of Bernal, also weren't only. We had 3 compromises, and we all fulfilled all of them. We signed with the so-called POO this agreement on the October 18th of 2023. Here is the sign of the government delegation of Venezuela, and the other one is the POO sign. And more for the opposition by the Norwegian signature, but we've been carrying that for 3 years. So, point 1 of on the on the moment 1, on the moment 2, been fulfilled. The rejection of any kind of violence was fulfilled by our government, not by theirs. The invitation of the European Union also. The indication of the approximate moment of the elections. We said it is no business our elections date. It is competition of electoral organism, and thus we sign with the POO, and the elections need to be held in the second semester of the 2024. That was our only compromise with the POO. The second semester of 2024, in which semester of the year, the July 28th of the election date, it is located. That was before the deaths were voting, but here the ones who has right to vote, they do. They are inscribed in the electoral council. Free access and equal access and balanced access in social media from the candidates. All of them has free access except one, Nicolas Maduro, because there is a fraudulent reward upon his head, signed by a prosecutor, alcoholic prosecutor that is in jail now. The only one that went freely to the streets is Nicolas Maduro, because there were 2 people already ready to kill him. United States is compromised to emit a general license to make authorizations to the pressures of oil and companies associated with the Venezuelan bank. We signed on October 17th of 2023, and the United States didn't emit the license. And this is what Maduro said. We were ready to sign, and the president asked, United States emitted the license? And we say no, they didn't. And Maduro said, sign still, because we have word, because we are decent people. Let's sign, because we've been making a compromise with the platform that this document needs to be signed, and we were making a compromise with the hostess of Barbados, and we made a compromise with the Mexican government as well, and we signed. The next day, that United States of America emitted the license 44 from gas and oil. And on the 19th and 16th, the Blinken secretary emitted the first ultimatum and the first threat, because this is a very strong source, that either Blinken or Sullivan are really happy, so they set back. On October 19th, a day after, Blinken puts an ultimatum of Maduro to raise the opposition limitations. And we have it over here. One day after. And you will say, in which part of the memorandum that I just read to you, it says that. In the memorandum says that everyone that has the requirement can participate. And we say tenths of time. We will not do it. And you can prove me wrong, because I have to, how to prove this? United States gives Maduro until the 30th to rehabilitate Rita Corina Machado. Dear journalist, have you seen this in this agreement that was signed with the United States of America or with the PU? Any name? Any date? Any candidate? No. It's a lie. They were not finding anything to do with his internal pressure. And they lie. Instead of telling the truth in bravery, they lie. That's why it's really important to speak with you. Because for us, our word, it is valuable. It is valuable. We are from one piece, President Maduro has said. If we say that we're going to sign an agreement, if we say that we're going to habilitate the electoral registration, if we say that we're going to make agreements in immigration within the state, we fulfilled this widely, like the decent people, like the people with dignity do. You can make your own judgment about this, because on the top of it, not 24 hours have after that, and an ultimatum was given to us, a consequence by a wicked situation that encourages the United States of America to overcompensate, and it can be several sanctions, but the economical factor are inhibited to give us fuel in a plane, because we don't know if it has sanctions or don't. A businessman from Venezuela has right, because supposedly he's not under sanctions, and he has the right to open bank accounts in foreign countries. And you can ask businessmen if they have been able to open bank accounts in other countries. The same day that Blinken said that it was stop the influx of investors that were coming to Venezuela. So they given a license and they're stepping on it by themselves. Phase 2 of the week 2, official announcement of the electoral calendar. Before to be finalized the first 4 months of 2024, it is expected that the Electoral Power of Venezuela announced the electoral chronogram and invited the European Union Commission and the United Nations Commissions. March 5th of this 2024, the National Electoral Council, and keeping his sovereignty, because every time that PU and the United States were asking where the Electoral Council, they were going to make elections, it was a decision of the Electoral Council. We can suggest, but it's the Electoral Council who decides with this, the Constitution, and to approve a decision is by the National Electoral Council, and it was set for the July 28th of 2024. And 2 days after, invited the observation missions and the Carter Center and several members of the United Nations and African Union, President Zapatero as a important figure, and different important as international observers. 2 days after, look what United States need to do 2 days after. I was getting a meeting with the Qatari Center, but for agenda issues I cannot do it now. By the way, at the same time, United States emitted a second general license to suspend all the economical sanctions, all of them, based on the national emergency, all of them, all of the sanctions, from the Merida ones, the ones about the medicines, the one of dialysis mechanism, the one that doesn't allow to have surgery for our children in European grounds, water and electric supply, transportation, health, education. So the March 5th of 2024, if you were compliant to this, and if Mr. Nichols respect this that we have here, I will be truly ashamed that someone comes to me and say this, you signed this and you didn't comply with this. I will be so ashamed, so ashamed. That's why I buy my Volkswagen by credit. I pay every single one of the, because Venezuelans, we're really ashamed if someone is asking you for the things that you owe. So Mr. Nichols, on March 5th of 2024, only to publish the electoral calendar with no other requirement. I repeat, before the first 4 months of 2024, it is expected to be announced electoral chronogram. At the same time, United States emitted a second license general to lift all the sanctions. Who is lying? Who is telling the truth? Who is fulfilling with the Barbados Agreement and who is not? Who is making valuable his word and who doesn't? Who is being respectful of the international laws and the Constitution laws, and who's not being? Who had stand everything here that I have been telling you by respect to these conversations and with respect with very generous people, our brothers of Qatar, but they were saying to every single time, it's a method that we already know. Associated Press meeting is filtered between Reuters. The reason why Blinken secretary gave the ultimatum is because it's not being in compliance. The meetings are held in, but you can read this word by word. Not even a single drop has been left behind. And I cannot receive the Doha delegations by other reasons, but They're here. The European Union representative came, then, but they're coming. So, who's lying? We, of course, are having a reaction, most of all because of the defense of the truth. Because my secretary teacher told me that we didn't need to have advice, but I'm going to give you one. You just shoot your own foot. A double, because Venezuela has proven that in the middle of the most brutal sanctions that were asked for by the far right, and that the Trump administration generously gave for the suffering of Venezuelan people, where it doesn't have anything to do where we just signed. It has to do with the pressures and with the United States government is not agreeing with the free elections in Venezuela, because the free elections will imply that we are all free to use the money of Venezuela, not to be stolen by Juan Guaido, no, to be stolen by Leopoldo Lopez. On top of those sanctions, Venezuela, we're going to get through this. There's going to be elections, presidential elections on the July 28th of 2024. And this is going to be like this. And we're going to get through this. We're going to thrive. There is inscribed candidates and inscribed parties, because we have proof that we have the means, that we can produce the food that we eat. We prove that we're going to thrive stepping on all those sanctions, and we can get to consensus and alliances with sectors that it could look like impossible to do. But right now there is agreement against the sanctions, and we're going to get through this. I don't know if Europe and United States don't need the Venezuelan oil. You need to consider that. And there's another memorandum that we signed, an immigration matter, that Venezuela allowed in an ordinate way 15 planes of repatriate were received here. All of them, we're going to receive them with open arms. And then there's been an invasion of the migratory influx, because Venezuela is living an important period of recovery. So we're restoring the wounds that you inflicted us. I don't know if you don't need the gas and oil of Venezuela. I don't know. And in immigration, the same day that the teleSUR plane was told, the same day that it was slaughtered in a brutal way in Florida, we said we gave us not in compliance the immigration agreement, because we have a word. And if you comply to this word, okay. If don't, we will speak when you get back your word and your sign. We will speak when you take back your own word and your own sign. There's any question? by Colombia, Gabriela Almazán. Well, the first one is, given everything that you just saw, you just proved, I was proven. I'm not telling, I'm proven. That's what I'm just, given what you just proved, in which status the conversation with the United States are, given the decision of the United States with the 44 license to close the door of the conversation in this matter, and in the same symphony, in this video conference that was held on Monday, that was what was happening with this second was hope to lift all the sanctions of Venezuela. And the other question will be precisely with the immigration agreement that you're pointed out that the flights are suspended, and I want to ask for other details in the immigration agreement. And the last word has to be with the Norwegian facilitation, because you spoke about the respect that you held with the Qatari facilitators, but it's not the same from the Norwegian ones. So the government delegation has some issues with the Norwegian facilitation. There will be a change of facilitation to continue with the dialogues. We suspected, but we didn't qualify it in the whole magnitude about the Norwegian facilitation until we met the Qatari facilitation. The Netflix series should be dropped, the Oslo series, because they cannot respect and facilitate a dialogue. There is a representative from the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Norway that he called 4 days ago to a person saying that we need to habilitate to no one knows who, that we should need to facilitate and habilitate to no one knows who. So the United States will renew the license 44. If we would sign, if that we're going to be habilitating to this person, you can swear on it that we will move forward in this topic, because we, in compliance with all that we promised, we did. So what's a Norwegian representative doing? And we've been through hard times. By example, when the embassy was manipulated for hide the agreements with the both parts are having an agreement in the Sequibo ground. That's making a facilitation. And I have several stories, but that can be ordered in another press conference or in another time, that we write a book, take away the Nobel Prize Award to them and give it to Qatar. In the immigration agreement that is over here, signature from Nichols, the same day, and Jorge Rodríguez signature. And there was the intention and the decision to respect the Conviasa Air Company and teleSUR. teleSUR was complying with all the legal requirements. and the plane was sent to the United States, and that's what it broke. And it's okay. Okay. You can be a superpower, but if you don't have a word, you're nothing. In front of the decent eyes of this earth, you're nothing. You can be a big power, but you have an important deficiency, and it's the lack of word and lack of compromise. So, we weren't us who violated the agreements, not us. We were every single time that we held a meeting with the United States delegation after the March 5th, we say you have the obligation from the March 5th to lift every sanction against Venezuela. And you have to comply. Internal issues, okay, but you signed that. I was not going to sign something that I didn't have the authorization by the internal policies in this constitution. That's why every single time that I was asked, no, we will never do. That was the answer. That's what you know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, thank you. We will never close the door. That's why we are here to get away from the lies since October 19 until now and swipe that down. At least that try again to wreck the truth. And because we have the truth with us, we're going to do it again. Because we have a lot of testimonies. Thank you. Patricia Villegas by teleSUR. How are you? I have several questions, so I'm going to make all of them, and I hope you try to answer all of them. The first question is, how is being the last conversations held? If you can give us some details, most of all the Mexico conversations. In internal political matters, was the opposition sector there's different rates that the Venezuelans reject the politics of the far right, and that is known to comply several factors. Fourth, what you read and we read before the Barbados agreement, it was really clear who could and who could not comply in the electoral process. So what's the analysis about this? Fifth, it is evident that the dialogue mechanism is in crisis in front of this fact. So the mechanism is suggesting any path to follow, Doha or other. Six, any message to the people of Venezuela, the regular people of Venezuela? You can feel uncertainty or worrying for the announcement of the sanctions. What are you saying to the people that it can be thinking this in your own country? It is a surprise this moment for you? All the contacts that we establish, because the contacts in the Mexico meetings were Francisco Palmieri. Then I don't know what his responsibility, but it has diplomatic responsibilities in Colombia that has ties with whatever is happening in Venezuela. We have not been allowed to name an ambassador in the United States. So whenever were able to do that, they can name one in Venezuela. We always ask them to comply with the agreements. Don't go under to the extremism in Venezuela. Venezuela has sectors and political factors that goes further away from the far right, and the coup d'etat and the military situation, the catastrophic situation that are trying to sow here. There's other political sectors in Venezuela, the opposition, a real and true opposition, even other sectors of the politics that makes alive the electoral platform. Don't listen only to this. Again, they went under and they surrendered the lead of the so-called opposition, because that's not the opposition of Venezuela to the far right and the extremism. And we will not allow that. That's why every single time that we're being asked, are you going to? No, we will never do that. Never. Not this life, not in another one. Not this universe, not in another one. We'll never do that. So, to good listener, the impact, of course, it can make a damage. They will be trying to for a lot of time. I was told, and it was right. I don't think that they act in compliance. But let's sign, but I don't think that they will comply, because they never wanted the good for Venezuela. Because the far right that is living here needs and seeks the suffering of the people, because they have all the set in there. They were lifted. They didn't lift the sanctions, and they will make obstacle to the normal influx, and they were getting like the payroll, the electrical system, beside of the violence, of course. What would happen if the March 25th, the attempt against President Maduro was done? How will be the situation in Venezuela nowadays? And we saw it. And even when we had a lot of signs that they will not be compliant, and sadly they're going under again under the far right. But this time, not even a single move we're going to make about the far right of Venezuela. Not even a single move. If they would have some decency and dignity, they will have asked for actions against Venezuela. Let's ask for the businessmen, the ones that are voting for the opposition in Venezuela. What are their thoughts about the sanctions of the United States against Venezuela? Of course, it is a harmful action against Venezuela. So I'm saying to the people of Venezuela, if we lift the sanctions of Trump here, we're not going to be able to thrive. But we are going to, and we're going to prove it. We're going to prove. And they're going to see with the shoot that they shot themselves with these both agreements that they didn't comply. We're going to prove ourselves worthy with a good life and with a recovery. More than we already are in recovery. But with the far right and the extremism that is always thinking how to twist the destiny of the republic. Now you can go to the United States if you want. You can go there. You can say and ask that foreign countries are invading United States, but here, no, never more. Not now, but no, never mind. No, there's no step forward. This is the line. Our invitation is United States is not backing to the immense people of Venezuela. Our invitation is that the people of Venezuela rises voice with the greatest strength possible against these sanctions, against the ones that are asking for those sanctions. So there has to be a time, because Venezuela has an article in the Constitution, has to be a time that Article 113 can be instrumentalized in law shape, because this is speaking about invasion and violence against Venezuela. The ones who are trying to steal the Guayana Esequiba grounds, like this ambassador in London, Vanessa Neumann, I think that is called Neumann. This is our message, and I think it's the 7th question I already asked. I already answered you. Let's sign, but they're not going to comply. And we stood every single time that AP went, or like we were secretly united. Everything came from the White House, but we stood up in silence.
Escuchaban declaraciones del doctor Jorge Rodríguez, pues quien daba importantes anuncios al país respecto.
We were live to Caracas, Venezuela, listening to the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodríguez, who highlighted the willingness of the government of President Nicolás Maduro to preserve the sovereignty of the country in the face of foreign threats and in the face of hostilities that the U.S. maintains towards the nation, despite the memorandum of understanding signed between the two sides. The official also highlighted the need to build bridges of dialogue and respect and denounced the unilateral sanctions imposed by Washington, an imposition he described as illegal. So this is all for the moment. You'll find more updates in upcoming news brief. Stay tuned.